Hey, welcome back to the show. And continuing with large format cameras and photography, I want to make a video on why use large format cameras. And this is very particular to each photographer. Each person will see a different benefit from it, but I'm going to just say out like a list of what I think is some of the most important points. I'm probably leaving some behind. Make sure you leave a comment if you think there's something different for you when you're using large format or what you think large format must feel like. But I want to start with something so you guys can understand why using large format in 2018 makes sense. First, when we're talking about large format, its own name is saying that we're using large format. You're going to get large negatives. And what does a large negative mean? First, you're going to have a lot of information, either you're contact printing, either if you're enlarging, if you're scanning, any of those methods will give you so much more information on the negative. You're going to have such a big tone or tonalities between the highlights and the darker areas. You're going to have probably almost no grain. You're going to not be enlarging this very big, so grain is minimal. You're going to have the depth of field is going to be crazy. That separation, that 3D effect that a lot of people like from medium format is even bigger on large format. One of those things also might be a con. I think a lot of people understand that some of the benefits from large format are also the bad points on large format, and is big film requires big film holders. It requires more to slow down. That can be a good or bad thing depending on what you want to shoot. But I think slowing down and making you take your time to compose, to go out for a walk, to see for the scene, to talk to your subjects, if you're taking portraits, stuff like that makes you get into your environment, have to plan your pictures ahead of time, plan going somewhere, talking to your subject if you're doing portraits. It lets you interact. You're not stealing pictures, like those people that run and gun with the street photography. This you're going to be totally seen for because you're going to put a tripod, you're going to meter, you're going to look at the subject, you're going to focus, make movements. And that is one of the biggest pluses, I think, is the fact that you slow down, you learn how to look. You don't want to carry this around looking for pictures. You kind of know where you want to go, and then you take your cameras. So that's another one, is that slows you down. Another one of the big things about large format is that you can make movements. And what do these movements mean? It means you can correct perspective in architecture. It means you can unfocus things on purpose to do those, like toyish pictures if you feel like it. You can do in landscape photography, you can use a wider aperture by changing the plane of focus. You can do so much more with large format that you can't do with 35 or medium format. Some medium format cameras have movements, some 35 cameras, lenses mostly have movements, but the large format cameras is basically total freedom to do everything you want, either artistically or to correct things to make it pretty much perfect product photography. It was the king of product photography before digital and Photoshop came into the game, and that is still very valid. Another huge thing about large format is the equipment is pretty much still really available. Large format cameras are still made, like the Cinar or Chamonix. You've got Intrepid making cameras, and camera equipment is getting cheaper every day. New cameras are cheap. Old cameras are cheaper because not a lot of people are shooting them. Lenses has a bit of a, there's a lot of people trying to buy these lenses. There's no more market to make them brand new. So whatever you find, take good care of it. But usually they're almost, built to last forever or close to forever. So lenses are usually very reliable. Lenses like this one cost around 150 bucks. They're not too expensive, and you can have a lot of fun with it. Another huge thing about large format is you can use the zone system. And if you've heard about the zone system, about metering your scenes depending on the contrast you want, treating it differently when you develop, if you're using roll film, you know that one roll will have to be used with the same zone. So if you're doing n+1 or n-1, you're going to have to use that throughout the whole roll. If your light is not changing and your scene is the same, you're good to go. But if you're using large format cameras, you're using a sheet every time. You can develop those sheets individually every time, or that will enable you to develop it differently and master that zone system. So if you're really into that zone system, the first format that you should really consider seriously is large format, because each sheet can be treated differently. So that is a huge plus for large format. It doesn't happen in any other medium on film because you're using, roll film. And as I said, have to sacrifice one role for one developing. Another of the big things about large format that a lot of people oversee is the fact that you don't need to sometimes enlarge. So if you're wanting to do contact prints in alternative, you can do platinum prints, you can do silver gelatin prints, you can do many other cyanotypes or anything like that. All these old processors, they're still beautiful. They have a long endurance in time. And if you want to make something unique, you can use large format. These sheets of film, for example, is an 8x10, make a great final product. It's big enough to hang. It's big enough for people to appreciate all the details. A lot of masters in large format photography chose contact printing as the final product. Doesn't mean you need an enlarger. If you're shooting 35 or 120 film, you are going to probably want to enlarge, and that makes you have a bigger darkroom. You're going to have trays and things like that maybe with contact printing you can have in a much smaller setup. Also, in large format, even though it's not something I usually use, is wet plate. So if you want to do wet plates, you can use large format cameras and put a wet plate on the back and develop that plates as one unique picture. You can also do negatives and then reproduce them. As I said, I'm not an expert on the matter. I have done it a few times, but that wet plate in big sizes is stunning. I've heard, you've seen people probably use Holga cameras or maybe Hasselblad cameras and adapt them, but those wet plates are unique, so you can't enlarge them usually, and they're small. If you're using a 6x6 camera, you'll have a 6x6 negative. If you're using an 8x10, 11x14 or bigger, you're gonna get that one of wet plate that's gonna be that big. So that is a big plus if you wanna start doing collodion and wet plate and stuff like that. And for now, that's all I can think of. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys think about large format, the pluses and cons. I will be making a video on about what's wrong or what's not good about large format, where it won't fit, and how you should approach it if you want to try it in certain areas of photography. But I think this for now is a good list for knowing why large format is important in 2018, why it's a benefit, and maybe why you want to start. So yeah, as always, leave any comments below or any of my social media. See you in the next video.